Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night is involving spring training from Jeff Passan, who's comparing the numbers, time of game. First of all, I'm getting tired of listening to this. I don't really care, as it turns out. I know they want to speed it up, and they've succeeded. So far, 2:36 this year versus 3:01, although today's game went 3 hours and 4 minutes. The runs seem to be the same. Essentially what this says is you're going to see more singles, more stolen bases, more runs, and 25 minutes faster. I am not going to believe this will sustain itself, Chris, throughout the course of the season. Do you?
I actually think it will. I'm going to put faith in baseball to actually enforce the rules and actually, like, what's going to be a great litmus test will be when it's not spring training and somebody does something to cost their team a game by, like, having a violation that results in the final strike or something like that of an at-bat or a balk. Will baseball just say, we're calling it this way? You just lost the game because you didn't follow the rules. The first time that happens, as long as it gets handled that way, I will believe it. And I think that this is good for the game. Baseball's lost a lot of people more or less permanently in terms of being avid fans, but I do think this is going to bring casual fans back in. People want to see action. Look at that number. I know you said you're sick of it, but more stolen base attempts. You say, oh, more singles. People don't want to watch that. People just want to watch the ball be put in play and have something happen. And that was going away, basically. It was becoming three true outcomes.
No, I agree. And what I meant by that was I'm tired of looking at tweets about it. I'm tired of talking about time of game. I don't want to look in the box score. And the first thing I do is look at, it's only 2 hours and 40 minutes. Hooray. Yeah. No, I don't. It's happening. Let it happen. I don't need to talk about it anymore. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's go to the lines. We have a lot of people want to talk here. Phil is first in North Hills. Hey, Phil.
Hey, guys, how are you?
What's up, Phil?
Good.
So, bad night as a sports fan here in Pittsburgh. The Pens they keep collapsing, and it's the same old story, over and over. Top, 6 players, 6 forwards are good, but the real thing that bothered me today is I disagree with both of you. I think Pitt isn't going to get in. I just don't. I think that loss is 30 points. I mean, it's a debacle. All they had to do was beat Notre Dame, and they'd have won tied for the ACC championship, and they'd have been in. I don't see them going to Dayton. I think that they're going to go out. All you need is a couple upsets in all these other tournaments. I've been watching them all day, and they're in trouble.
Well, I think that's a good point. If you have some unusual upsets and teams like, for example, a 10th seed goes into a tournament and wins the entire thing, who knows, Chris? You could find some people being pushed around that you wouldn't have expected because of that. And I'm not so sure how much of that has happened so far, but this weekend we could see a few of those.
Carolina losing was a good thing for Pitt. Penn State winning was a bad thing, although, that's not a bid steal if Penn State wins the Big Ten tournament or something. But, I said that they're going to get in based on not knowing the results of some of these tournaments where there is the possibility that a team from the outside looking in ends up playing their way into the tournament. I do think, though, absent that happening multiple times, Pitt's going to be in. Like, I know people are worried that this is like a catastrophic thing that happened today, and it was an ugly, unbelievably bad loss, but they were as high as like a 9 or I think maybe even an 8 in somebody's brackets. They weren't close to that last team to get in. They were like 4 teams removed from being out or even on the bubble. So I think they're much more on safe ground than people think, and that the real question here is whether they end up in Dayton or not.
Let's go out to Rob in Indiana, who joins us on line 1. Hello, Rob.
Hey, Bob. I wonder if you had any insight into today's game. Federico never saw the court in the second half that I saw.
I think he was overmatched inside.
He's got a knee injury.
Yeah, and he had an injury after that, too. But I think at the beginning, they did not have a lot of presence in the inside in the paint.
No, I mean, that's a game where you'd kill to have like a healthy John Hughley. I mean, you'd say that about most of the games this year. You'd have 2 real big men to go at them, and with Hughley, some like real nastiness. Federico's been a revelation all year, but Hughley's kind of got that bruiser mentality that those old Pitt bigs had. The story with Federico, though, like the insight callers wondering about there is Jeff Capel, I think, alluded to it, that he tweaked his knee in the Georgia Tech game. He didn't look like himself, according to Capel. He had the foul trouble, and with that game pretty much out of hand at halftime, Capel made the decision to sit him so he wouldn't get further more hurt. Bob. So that's my understanding. I think they know how important he is, even if they're not playing a high-level team, to their advancement in the tournament, and that's why they saved him for that second half.
We got a lot of tweets here about Tristan Jarry, Chris. I want to read a couple to you. Sean says this is how he's done in his last 11 games: 4-7, 893 save percentage, and a 343 goals against. Sean also, a different Sean, says can't sign him to a long-term deal. Too much money. That's going to lead to a very interesting question this offseason. What do they do in goal? If they come away with this and he does not improve and he doesn't do much in a postseason, what do you do with Tristan Jarry? He wants $6 million a year.
He's not a $6 million a year goalie. I mean, I know that the scales of who's worth what are warped. You know what's weird about playing goal in this city with this team? You've got to have somebody who is, and Fleury, I guess, became comfortable with this even at, the first cup run he got it, and then he kind of became comfortable after some playoff failings again. He rediscovered his game. You've got to have somebody who is at ease knowing they're going to face multiple odd man breaks a game because of the way the Penguins want to play in the offensive zone. I think that can break certain goalies. I'm not saying it broke Jarry. He's been pretty good most of the year. But I think it takes a special kind of guy mentally to play goal for this team.
Well, when you hear a report that, chronic hip injury or something of that nature, that, that's not good for a guy who relies on his hips.
No, he's brittle.
Yeah,
he's brittle. He's too injury prone, among all other things, Bob, for me to want to give him $6 million annually.
JB, Squirrel Hill, you're up. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah, hey, I think Steelers need to draft on the lines, defensive, offensive line. That's why they can't win playoff games. They keep trying to draft all these fancy positions.
Well, I mean, they need a lot of things, quite frankly. That would be on the list. Cornerbacks on the list. They need inside linebacking help. It's on the list. They can also use another wide receiver, I think. But, man, Chris, it's all going to depend on what they do and where they see the biggest need. If they have an opportunity perhaps to move up and take a tackle, if they believe a tackle is available who can be a 10-year protector of the blind side, or there's a defensive line. There are a lot of Jalen Carter is a very interesting story. And I just wonder, I don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but teams may shy away, maybe not. But if they do, and let's say he's around, would you make a play for him?
And that's all the degree of tolerance you have for what he was involved in. He wasn't driving the car where 2 people were killed, but he was driving the other car where they were allegedly drag racing, basically, or they were driving at extremely high speeds. That's like a personal taste thing. I would be a little uncomfortable with it. I don't think it's going to matter for the Steelers because I have a feeling Seattle's going to take him if he's there with the 5th pick in the draft. I think Pete Carroll would look at a guy like that and say, I'm a player's coach. I'm a guy who gets through to people. I can get through to this guy. We need him on a defensive line. You'd have to consider it. I mean, if you're Mike Tomlin, if you're Omar Khan, and he's there at 17, it's absurd. The guy was going to be going number 1 overall in some people's mocks up until 2 weeks ago. I'm with the caller, though, as far as saying, hey, you got to build on the lines. It was good enough for the Philadelphia Eagles, wasn't it? They built up their lines. They made the defensive line and the offensive line a priority, and it got them to the precipice of a Super Bowl.
By the way, did you see the compensatory picks came out, and the San Francisco 49ers have 7 of them. I believe 4 in the 3rd round.
The rich get richer, Bob. That's how it works. The rich get richer.
And the Steelers had none. 0 comp picks. A lot of those were related to coaches who went on to get other jobs in other organizations.
Well, that would be nice if there was a coaching tree here, but there isn't. It's just I read another article on McVay today about how he's willing to bring in guys outside of his coaching tree if he thinks the new ideas are worthwhile, how they have like 3 new coaches. And then I just thought about how the Steelers, it's retread central, or it's guys who've been around forever and whose ideas have been around forever. Inspiring stuff.
We got to take a break on that note. When we come back, we'll try to squeeze in Mike, who joins us out in Beaver County, and more. 412-575-2600. Don't go away. We're coming right back.